Over the 4-day weekend, your story came out that this concert provider contract was canceled with the city. Give us a little background. How long ago did the city cut the deal with this concert promoter from California?
It was last March when this group called ICM Partners came to St. Louis and had this grand idea. They said they were going to have these massive music festivals in downtown St. Louis. They were going to be over Memorial Day weekend. They were going to be over Labor Day weekend. One would be a country and Western music festival, and the other would be a rock music festival. And, you know, they would draw the biggest acts around, like Madonna and U2 and people like that. So it was one of those things that sounded too good to be true, and ultimately it was not. So the city almost immediately, when this group called ICM Partners, they're based out of California, they're a big talent agency, but they don't have much experience putting on concerts. St. Louis almost immediately said yes. They suspended the rules at the Board of Aldermen. They went, they fast-tracked this bill, got it through so they could give an exclusive reservation agreement to this company to try to put on these concerts in St. Louis. What happened was it ended up pushing out a lot of other events.
All right, so that's my question, Nick Pister. The contract in your story this weekend says that contract's over. How many festivals and concerts were pushed aside because of this agreement?
Well, there's a big argument about this because the city tries to say that like an event like Taste of St. Louis was going to leave anyway, but Taste of St. Louis came out and said, no, they weren't, and that sort of thing. There was a Blues Fest. There were a bunch of other things because it was an exclusive agreement, so no one could really plan anything for Memorial Day and Labor Day weekends without, with this thing being there. So two really big weekend, times to have a downtown event were completely off the books. And then you put that on top of a situation like the VP Fair Parade has now moved to Forest Park. So you really have, a long period of time over the summer where there are no events downtown. So this type of act did have a pretty big consequence on downtown events and people coming to downtown and everything like that. So I think, that's kind of where people are left with this.
And you forgot to mention, or didn't mention here, was the BBQ Festival was a giant barbecue festival that moved out to Newtown, and then St. Louis City started queuing the loo. So they had a great festival, lost it, and now they have to start all over again with something new.
Right, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of preparing for new festivals and doing things like that. And in retrospect, the city was saying, well, we don't do any big things anymore. We need to have these big, concert festivals if we at least have to try it. And I think a lot of the pushback was that, St. Louis always tries to take the bait on this magic bullet that's like, we're going to have this big, grand thing, and it's going to be so great, like the mega projects that they've done, like the Arch Project, but in the past there's been, St. Louis Center, all these big things that have to be done all at once, but oftentimes they don't turn out to be what they were advertising, because a lot of times when they were proposing this concert, it was going to be on the lines of Lollapalooza and on the lines of some of these big, regional events that have been going on for years and years and years. Well, a lot of people were saying, you can't just do that overnight. Like Lollapalooza started over a period of decades and grew and got big, and also this trend of music festivals. I don't go to a lot of music festivals. That's not my thing, but a lot of people like to go to these festivals. There become so many of them. I don't know how many music festivals you can have. So I don't know.
Well, you haven't talked to Andrew Dowd. He goes to all of them.
I was thinking the same thing.
Nick Pister, why ultimately were they not able to get any concerts, any big Madonna concerts downtown? What happened?
Well, I remember when they passed this, and they said they needed to do it very quickly, which they did, so they could start planning an event right away. And that never happened. They said they needed to find investors and everything like that. I think one thing that did get away that they won't say or admit to is that Ferguson did come up in the middle of this. The August after this bill was passed, Ferguson happened, and I think it made it difficult to attract investors and the talent needed to put on an event like this, because I think that was coming at a time where St. Louis's image was bruised, and I think it's going to be hard to find hundreds of thousands of country music fans willing to drive from Oklahoma up to the city of St. Louis to attend a concert at that time.
Yeah, good point.
Same for a rock concert.
The contract didn't cost the city any money, and when it was canceled, they had to pay a cancellation fee, right?
Correct. The agreement called for a $25,000 cancellation fee to be paid for each concert that wasn't done. So they've paid $50,000 this year. Since they've mutually canceled this agreement, now they won't be paying anything next year, and hopefully St. Louis can start planning events for Memorial and Labor Day weekends for year to come.
Nick Pister, thanks for keeping an eye on everything. Have a good day.
You too.
Nick Pister, STLtoday.com, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Great guy. And sat right next to me when Nancy Grace kicked me off the show.
Oh, he was next to you?
He was sitting right next to me in the TV studio. 826, Big 550, KTRF.